Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Veterinary Business Podcast, your ultimate resource for developing a successful veterinary practice and career. I'm Dr. Amanda Landis-Hanna, one of the co-hosts of the Veterinary Business Podcast. On this podcast, we bring you insights and expertise from industry-leading doctors, experts, and thought leaders. We cover a wide range of topics, including practice management, marketing strategies, leadership development, HR best practices, and much more. Today, we'll be covering AI. Whether you're a practicing veterinarian, a practice owner, practice manager, or a student studying to be a veterinarian or veterinary team member, this podcast is tailored to help you navigate the unique challenges and opportunities in the business of veterinary medicine. Every listener of this podcast is welcome to visit our website at www.veterinarybusinessinstitute.com for additional resources and tools to support your growth. And remember, you can subscribe to our podcast at iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, and other popular podcast platforms. Today, I'm excited to speak with Shawn Wilkie, Chief Executive Officer of Talkatoo, about the progress of AI in veterinary medicine. Let's jump in. Before we get started, Shawn, why don't you take a minute to tell us a little bit about yourself? Who are you? How did you get into veterinary medicine? I'd love to hear your story.
Yeah, great. Well, thanks for having me, Amanda. It's a pleasure to be here. It's been not too long ago since we last got to hang out for a couple of minutes. So nice to see you virtually, and it was great to see you in person at AVMA. So who am I? How did I get into veterinary medicine? So I guess I'm a self-proclaimed serial entrepreneur. So I've been running companies since I've been 13 years old. Started with a canteen at a local ball field. My brother liked to play sports. I like to make money. And so I've been doing this for a long, long time, this whole kind of running businesses. And I think it grew from there. I had an ice cream stand. I had a consulting company. I had a real estate development company. I've had a couple of software companies. And so I've been doing it for a while. I think 6 startups under my belt. I'm a guy that's driven by excitement. You know, I love adventure. So whether it's jumping out of airplanes, going deep in the ocean, or running into burning buildings. All of those things kind of describe me as a person when I'm not at work. I guess a bit of a thrill seeker, a bit of an adventurer, and a bit of a traveler. I love to travel. I've been in over 85 countries now. Wow. I think maybe even a little bit more. And so it's one of the things that entrepreneurship and running businesses has allowed me to do is travel a lot, meet a lot of really interesting people. And probably the funnest thing that I do on the weekly is podcasting. So I've been running a podcast now for, I can't believe it, but 5 years.
Wow.
Into that space. We just crossed over 5 years the other day. The podcast
Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks a bunch. It's called the Veterinary Innovation Podcast. You know it because you've been on it, and you'll be on it again because you're always doing some innovative stuff. But that's generally who I am. I'm a company guy. I'm passionate about pet health. And then my entry into animal health was really kind of interesting. Back in the early days of AI, when we didn't really call it AI as much as we do today, I started the first veterinary voice recognition company that was actually building software specifically for vets a long time ago, back 2016. So early days. That company was called Dragon Veterinary. We built speech recognition software with Nuance Communications in concert with them to take dictation to veterinary medicine. And that is kind of how I got into this industry. I literally accidentally got in. So basically what happened is we were selling dictation software to medical doctors in Canada and the US. And the partner that we were working with introduced me to a veterinary radiologist in Houston that had developed a vet vocabulary to work with Nuance's software. I was flying through Houston on my way to Costa Rica to do some work. And I was stopping to see my friend in Houston. And the week before, I was meeting this veterinary radiologist. Brian Petit's his name, an unbelievable guy, super, super bright guy. And I said, where are you from? And he said, oh, I'm from Houston. I said, oh, wow, I'm coming there this weekend. And so I went and visited him. We drank a a couple of beer in his office. We bought a domain name, which was dragonveterinary.com. And that's how I got into VetMed, was through that startup. And it's been, you know, almost a decade now for me kind of in this industry, solving issues with really unique technology. And then AI showed up, and what can I say? This kind of new form of AI just fascinated me. And so I've been doing a ton of lecturing around the world. So this year alone, I was at WVC, I was at AVMA, I was at the World Small Animal Forum, talking about innovation and AI because I love it. It's amazing, and it's here to help. And there's all kinds of controversy, and I love that as well. But that's a long-winded intro of how I got into AI and who it is that you're talking to on the other side of the camera here.
You know what? It's not long-winded at all. You've done so many different interesting things that, yeah, you need time in order to describe all of them. And as a fellow lover of AI and someone else who works in the space, I'm so grateful for your friendship and really excited to kind of dive in a little bit during this conversation. So you mentioned Dragon Vet. So kind of draw the picture for me between Dragon Vet and Talkatoo. I'm obviously really familiar with Talkatoo, love the product and the things that you guys are doing in the space. Can you kind of fill me in on what happened between those?
Yeah. So I started a podcast. So, I saw the writing on the wall for that business from my perspective. And the
Mm-hmm.
writing on the wall was that we were building software, but reselling somebody else's. So, and there's a lot of other companies in the vet space that resell other people's product. It's kind of like a white label. Like white
Mm-hmm.
label means take a product, it doesn't have a label on it. You put your label on it, you do some other things, and you go to market with it. And so that's what we were doing. And because but we did have a little piece of software that was our own, and we were selling that through other partners as well. And the piece of software that was our own was the part that made it into a vet specific version. We took a human product and we took it and made it a vet specific product. So that was one of my software companies. But what I saw on the wall is that we were not probably going to be needed for very much longer. We had a
Mm-hmm.
large corporate group that wanted to buy a lot of licenses. We went back to our partner and said, can we get a big discount for this corporate group? And they were like, we'll give you 10% off. And I was like, this is
Yeah.
not going to work. And so that was kind of where I left that product. It was like when I made a decision that this wasn't the path for me. And luckily, for me, my partner that I was running the company with loved the company, loved the business model, and they're still going today. They're still running a successful company. So I think that the one thing that I've learned in vet med is it's a big enough market for so many people. So the Dragon product, for example, if you're listening to this podcast, it's the number one product out there if you're a veterinary radiologist. It
Yeah.
is hands down the best. It works really well. It has a lot of advanced commands. And for that portion of the market, there's not a better product on the market. And then where Talkatoo kind of came in and kind of what makes us different, and I don't have current knowledge of their product today, but where Talkatoo is different and what we always had in mind is we want it to be a more scalable product. We want it to be more affordable. We wanted to take this technology to as many people as we could. So the nurses, the receptionists, everybody that worked in the practice, and make it so that it was affordable and as many people that wanted to use it could. And so that was how we operated for the first, 3.5 years of our existence as Talkatoo. We were literally a desktop widget that would allow you to put text in any field that you wanted to, any software. We integrated with every software, all vet software, all other software, and we just tried to make it simple. And so we did that for the first 4 years. And then this new form of AI showed up. And that's when things for us as a company really changed. It allowed us to do things that we just couldn't have done before.
That's amazing. So you're describing this new form of AI, and obviously this whole conversation is really revolving around AI. So talk a little bit about the new pieces of technology that became available and how Talkatoo has really kind of evolved along the pathway.
Yeah. So let's set the backdrop. So Let's talk about early AI. And so when we think of AI, we think of technology, we think of robots. That's what everybody thinks of, you
Mhm.
know? And so early AI was pattern recognition. It was computational things that happened inside our computers. It was Gmail. It was Google Maps. And when I say it was Gmail for the spam filtering, Google Maps for the traffic patterns and telling you where to go. These were all early forms of AI that we weren't really at the time calling AI. We used to call it
Right.
more machine learning.
Hmm.
And so, what's happened just a couple of years ago, and not even two, is this new form of AI showed up. And this new form is large language models and generative AI. And so, the best way to think of these new forms of AI um, is massive, massive, massive amounts of data that's interconnected with one another. So you think of a picture that's related to a place, that's related to a book that's written about that place, that's related to a blog post that's related to that place, that's
Right.
related to a video. And all of this stuff is kind of mashed together in what's called a neural network. And the best way to think of a neural network is like your brain. It's the closest example we have. It's like we have memories scattered here and there. We have interconnected pieces. And so these neural networks that power these large language models allow for something that's never really been able to happen before, which is for these things to generate human like responses because of the vast amounts of data and all of the algorithms and interpretation that's happened behind this.
Hmm.
So back to early AI, voice recognition, pattern recognition, the intonation in your voice. I say the word hello. The machine listens to it, it recognizes a pattern, it types out the word hello.
Hmm.
That was an early form of AI, and it's been around since the 90s. Dragon has been around since the 90s. It had three different names before it was actually even called Dragon. Fascinating technology. What's happened now is you can pair these two things together. You compare this AI, this generative AI, with pattern recognition. So, pattern recognition first, then AI. And anybody that's used ChatGPT knows that you can talk to it in what's called um, natural language, which means
Hmm.
you can ask
Right.
it a question like it's a human. You can say, what's the weather? Not that we couldn't do that before, but you can say something more complicated, like what is the smallest shark in the world and what is the largest shark in the world? The reason I have this example is I have an 8-year-old that is fascinated by sharks. And so this morning I asked a large language model, what is the largest shark in the world and what is the smallest? And give me a list of every shark from the largest to the smallest with a picture. And it's able to go through because of these patterns and generate that. So how are we using that at Talkatoo? So it's very fascinating. The problem with voice recognition has often been accuracy. It's like it's good, really good, but it's not 100%. And so what you can do now is you can dictate something, you can run it through generative AI, and what comes out on the other side is perfectly punctuated and has less errors than ever before. So I always tell people dictation plus a generative AI equals like a heart symbol because you get to this place where it's perfectly usable almost. And it's able to take meaning from something that was dictated, make sure that it makes sense. So it's able to interpret it and then kind of like verify it to some degree. And what results at the other end is something that's far more accurate than was ever possible before with any of these early dictation systems. So that's a long-winded way to start to answer your question. So let me finish by saying, what are we doing? So the first thing that we did, we had a big verified by Talkatoo program. And that program was to take audio, run it through AI, generate a medical record, and have humans verify it. And we were doing that a year and a half, almost 2 years ago. And
Hmm.
then this generative AI came out. And now what we're doing is we're allowing people to record their full appointments, send them to us, and then we run it through AI that we've developed with custom technology with some of our astrophysicists that work at Talkatoo. And we generate a medical record that is better in most cases than what the veterinarian would have generated if they did it themselves. So that's one thing that we're doing. We still do the dictation. We're
Sure.
doing this automatic record creation with a vast degree of customization included. And then we've also created an AI assistant. And this AI assistant is paired with our dictation. And you can say things like, write me a full surgery report for a 4-year-old golden retriever with a twisted stomach and large or intestine or a large. I'm going to correct myself. Do you edit this so I can?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay,
Just give it
perfect.
a
So
little gap.
yeah, we'll give it a little gap and we'll go back. So you can go into the Talkatoo assistant and you can say, write me a full surgery report for a 4-year-old canine on January 5th, 2024, that came in with a twisted stomach and excessive gas in the large intestine. And the surgery went fine. There was no problems. And we think that the golden retriever, Doodle's his name, will make a full recovery. You don't even have to speak in a way that makes any sense to anybody, because what the large language model does is it goes in, it cleans it up, it edits it, it creates a report, and then you can say, from that surgery report, write me an email. Or you can say, analyze this blood work. Or you can say, what do you think about this recommendation? Or create me take home instructions for this canine. Or write me a full radiology report. The list of use cases for this assistant that is built into Talkatoo are so wide and so deep and so varied that we're finding out new use cases for it every single day. And the most incredible part is it works with all your existing software. It's super duper easy to use. And so what we're really trying to do, Amanda, is supercharge the vets that use our software so they can get a little bit more time at lunchtime to take a lunch, or at the end of the day to go home, to see their family, to kind of do things that they like in addition to being a vet or a technician or
I'm
a
so
CSM.
excited about that. So many of our veterinary technicians, veterinary team members, um, they're the ones that bear the brunt of additional time that's being occupied. They don't get a lunch. I mean, half the time they don't even get a restroom break. So factoring in the necessity for basic human needs in a veterinary hospital is amazing. It's revolutionary in some ways. And I'm really excited about how you're using generative AI. What kind of steps do you see in the future? Are there languages that you're really wanting to work in, or are those things already incorporated?
Yeah, I think the thing that we've found over the last, let's call it like 6 to 8 months is just there's so much movement in this space. Um, one of the things that I often get asked by people, because Talkatoo's been around for 5 years now, we're no longer a startup. We have, 30 staff in all around the world. We're doing all kinds of really interesting things. And people say, well, what do you think about all the competition in your space all of a sudden? Or are you worried about the competition? And I got to be perfectly honest. I was super worried. Like December of last year, I was like, oh my God, I woke up and then all of a sudden I had 15 competitors. And there seems to be a new one every week. But what's happened and what I think is super duper interesting is there's a new category that's been created in veterinary medicine, in the software of veterinary medicine. And that category is like a generative AI category where you have a bunch of innovators that are all coming to this space to try to solve the problem. And guess what? I would say 90% of veterinary team members have this problem. So there's hundreds of thousands of people with this documentation problem. So there's more than enough customers for all of the people that are in the space. And the thing that I think is really an advantage for Talkatoo is that we've been doing this for a long time. We've got a lot of customers and we've got a lot of learning. And so I think we're in a really great spot to be able to help more people. And as far as the competition goes, I think it's great because we're not going to do everything. There's just no way. Like even having a company with 40 people is not that big. It's not a lot of people. And so I think there's a big problem. And I'm kind of happy to see this category be made. And I'm happy to see all of these innovators come in and try to solve the problem all in a bit of a unique way. So it's pretty exciting.
I completely agree. As someone who has history in multiple startups, competition can be a really good thing. It pushes you, it makes you improve things, it encourages you to be even more innovative. And obviously, as you mentioned earlier, there's so many competitors and everybody has a space. There's so many people in the veterinary industry that need support and help. And being able to have multiple different programs available that tweak things just a little bit differently for every individual probably feels really good to be a leader in the space, to really be first and foremost in so many ways, and to be bringing so many new ideas and generative AI to the veterinary industry. Obviously, veterinary team members aren't always the first leaders, the futurists, the individuals who are going to jump on the newest, fanciest thing right away. And because you guys have been around, I imagine you've had a lot of learnings and understand how veterinary team members think and work. Are you finding, for instance, that you have learned things that maybe veterinary team members didn't even realize that they needed? And how are you potentially bringing that into the veterinary space?
Yeah, I think we've learned so much. And like, one of the things, I think one of the biggest learnings that we've had, and it's been a fundamental kind of way that we've changed our company, is just talking to our customers. A big portion of my week, every single week, is being on the phone with on the phone, on the screen, on a Zoom with our customers, understanding how they're using the product, how it's fixing issues for them, what issues they have, what issues or ideas they have for the product, and just kind of like being deeply integrated with them as part of our company, because they're really they're the lifeblood of our company. Without customers, without revenue, no company eventually will exist. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you can get lots of money, burn through it. But when you speak to your customers and you understand how to solve their problems and you focus on those activities, it makes you a better company. And so, it's very easy to create software in a vacuum, meaning like, you just build the features and you build the features and you build the button. It's one thing to build software that you think people will like. It's another thing to build software that people like.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you have to start somewhere. You have to get that enough software off the ground and get people using it to be able to get feedback. But we're very lucky because we have thousands and thousands and thousands of users. And guess what? When I text them and say, "Hey, my name is Shawn. I'm the CEO of Talkatoo. I'd love to chat with you for a couple of minutes about how you're using our software." Guess what? They friggin' write back. And we always struggled to kind of interact with veterinary professionals in the vet space. And the reason why is because they're so damn busy. But if we say, "Hey, listen, we'd really like to talk to you about how you're using our software, and if there's anything that we can do um, to make it better," it's incredible. Like, they respond and like they give me 5 minutes on a weekend or 20 minutes in an evening, or they get up at 6:30 in the morning to take a call with me. And so it's it's now my favorite part of my job, is talking to our customers, because I talk to the customers and I also sit on our product development leadership team. And then I take that feedback to the team and I'm like, "No, they don't like it like this. They want it like this." And they'll be like, "But it doesn't make sense." But like, "Listen, we've heard from 30 people that they want it like this." And they're like, "Okay, okay, okay." So we build it the way that they want it. And so it's that's been one of the biggest learnings. The other learning for me is kind of get out of the way and let good people do their work. So
Mm-hmm.
that's something, like, as an entrepreneur, I think everybody struggles with, is like, well, like, maybe I could do it better. Early in my career, I was a perfectionist. I thought I could do everything better than everybody else. Um, I'm certainly not able to do anything close to that. I can do a lot
Right.
of things,
Mm-hmm.
but there's so many things that are done in my company, whether it's the engineering team or the marketing team or the sales team or the or the finance team. There's so many people. Like, I think one of the things that you have to do as an entrepreneur is just keep hiring people that are smarter than you and getting out of the way.
Oh,
And it's difficult. It's real difficult, but after 20 some years of experience, I'm starting to get pretty good at it. I'm starting to
I'm
get pretty good at getting out of the way.
right. Well, as someone who has responded to your emails and as someone who has tested and played with Talkatoo and found it to be really so much fun to work with. And like you said, making it easy. It really is an easy tool to use. I'm very grateful for your willingness to listen to veterinary team members in order to make our lives easier. Now, I want to pivot just a little bit and talk about the Veterinary Innovation Podcast. I'm a listener. I have certainly participated in the Veterinary Innovation Podcast. I love what you guys are doing. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about it?
Yeah. So 5 years ago, I was selling my veterinary software company, and a friend of mine was selling his veterinary software company. And I said to him, we should start a podcast. And he said, what's a podcast? And literally, Ivan, this is for you. And so he said, sounds like a good idea. And I said, what should we do it about? And I said, why don't we do about innovation? And he said, sounds like a great idea. We're two innovative guys, meaning we like to solve problems, and we liked each other. And so
That
I had
makes a
this
big
idea.
difference.
Yeah, a big difference. I mean, geez, 5 years of putting up with each other at least once a week. He's like one of my closest friends in the world now because, friendships, like anything else, do need care and maintenance. They're not quite like a lawnmower, but they're kind of like a lawnmower. You need to do the things that they need to do in order to keep them. So this friendship that I've created with Ivan Zach, my co-host, has spanned many different countries. We've traveled Canada, US, Mexico, Europe, Portugal, um, Ukraine together. Like, we've been on multiple trips, not all related to the podcast, but a lot related to the podcast. And so we started this podcast with this idea that veterinary medicine needed more innovative solutions because there was a lot of problems in veterinary medicine and there was a lot of opportunity. And so we didn't think much of it, but we started it. We recorded 10 episodes, talking to everybody you could think about, really trying to focus in on innovation, though, not just software companies, not just medical device companies, not just creative ways to solve the burnout issues in veterinary medicine, not any of these things exclusively. But we talked to a lot of people that had an idea to change something in veterinary medicine or had an idea to improve something. And they're 20-minute conversations. You should know because you've been one of them, with people that are doing something innovative. And it's become this like a perpetual motion machine.
Mm-hmm.
Every single week on Thursdays, we launch an episode, and it's a 20-minute conversation with some really smart people that are doing some innovative things. And it blows my mind to think that we've released like 300 episodes. It's amazing.
Wow.
And we've talked to people literally in every corner of the planet.
Mm.
And I've created friends all over the world. And it's just been an incredible experience. We really started maybe 6 months before COVID, and then it just hasn't stopped. And it feels like the kind of thing that just can't stop, won't stop. So we're having a lot of fun, and that's what we do.
I love it. Having been a guest on your podcast, I love talking with you. I love talking with Ivan. I will never forget that your relationship with Ivan is like a lawnmower that's going to create a lot of permanence in my brain. So I appreciate that. Now, you guys talk with so many individuals. And obviously, not everybody's going to make it on your podcast. So, who do you look to in order to monitor for changes and innovations that are coming down the line? Is there anyone that you want to make sure that we keep an eye out for, or any conferences or key opinion leaders that we should keep our eyes on?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's a lot of innovators out there. There's a lot of people that are just, they've been churning at this. Like I remember meeting the head of the Veterinary Innovation Council years ago, Dan. And, you know, and then I've got friends, veterinary innovators. I've got the guy that's running the Veterinary Innovation Council now, Aaron Mascar, all of these entrepreneurs that have sold companies. Um, all of these vets that have been involved in really interesting like technology, people like yourself, these
Thank
people
you.
that are just like, they're just constantly trying to find new solutions. And I've got a Rolodex of them. But what we've done, and this is like part of our innovation, was borrowing an idea from somebody else. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. One of my favorite podcasts when I first started to listen to podcasts was the Tim Ferriss podcast. And on every episode of his show, he asks for another innovator that the guest feels he or she should invite to come on the show, and also a book or some TED Talk YouTube video that they would recommend. And so we have a list of literally hundreds of people that have been recommended to come onto our show. And then we also have a form. So our podcast is not this, you know, exclusive thing. Anybody can submit a form. We do have a ton of requests. We have like a 6-month long backlog to get on the show most of the times. But it's become this kind of perpetual motion machine that just kind of keeps driving itself forward. But then obviously, like when we go to conferences, where I'm at VMX or WVC or AVMA or the World Small Animal Forum, I'm walking the show halls. I'm looking for new companies. I'm walking through the startup competitions. I'm looking at the startup kind of areas of the VMX trade show and really going around and talking to everybody and seeing what they're doing. And that's how a lot of it has come to be, not just me, not just Ivan, but also our production team. We've got a team of great people, Bogdan and Nastia in the Ukraine, that produce our podcast, and Alex, and they're always scouring the internet, and there's always people reaching out to them. So it's really a whole team. But involved in that team is every guest that's ever been on our show, which is pretty cool.
That's amazing. So, of course, you mentioned it. So, I have to ask, who would you recommend and what book would you recommend that our listeners maybe check out?
Yeah. So, that's a great question. So, who would I recommend for a podcast? I would recommend Headley, the guy that started EasyVet and sold it to IDEX. This guy was an early friend of mine. We were building companies at the same time. He's exited. But if you could get him on the podcast to talk about innovation and growing a technology company, I think he's probably been the most successful guy to do it in vet med in the last 20 years. And he's a hell of an interesting guy. So I'd recommend him. And then a book. Thanks for giving me so much time to prep for this. I think maybe Atomic Habits.
Oh, such a good
I
book.
think, yeah, it's like solid, right? It's like, how do you get in the habit of doing the things that you need to do to be successful? Because a lot of it's not luck, right? A lot of what it takes to be successful is just friggin' hard work and developing habits that allow you to do the hard work. So those two.
Oh, those are amazing. I do love with Atomic Habits in particular that it's the small repetitive things that you do every day. It's sort of like the toothbrushing of your business and the
Yeah,
things
yeah,
that
yeah.
you're doing every day that help create these amazing changes over time.
And it's
Uh,
so funny. And I like it, absolutely. And habit stacking is like one of these other principles that I like. And people say, well, what have you taken out of the book? And so I have 2 meetings that I have every single day. I have a meeting with my executive assistant to start my day at like 8 o'clock every day. And then I have a meeting at 9 o'clock every day with my chief operations officer every day, every single day. Like some days we don't have much to talk about, but usually we spend like the half an hour or the hour every single day. And that really sets the rhythm for the company. So, and those are just like, I brush my teeth, I eat some breakfast, I have my coffee, I might read, and then I do these meetings every single day. And then the rest of my calendar is kind of very scripted, but there's real opportunity in habit creation.
Absolutely. Well, other than habit creation, what do you hope that listeners take away from this episode today?
It's one thing, and like one thing only, which is give AI a try. Like, and what does that mean? There's 15 companies in vet med. There's all kinds. I'll give a couple shout outs for entrepreneurs that I know. Radimal, Alan at Radimal, they're doing veterinary AI radiology, really interesting stuff. Neil Shaw, another friend at Signal Pet, same thing. Any of these AI voice startups, including Talkatoo, give any of them a try. This stuff is amazing. It's going to make long-term positive change possible in an industry that has way too much work to do and not enough people to do it. We can outsource some of this work to the computers. Please just give it a try. If it's not my company, try any of them. Try downloading ChatGPT on your phone and just asking it things. And it doesn't even have to be work related. Ask it for restaurant recommendations in a town that you're visiting. Ask it for something to do with your job. Just give AI a try is probably the biggest thing that I would like people to take from this episode.
Well, and don't forget to ask any of the AIs about the smallest and largest whales.
That's right. Or sharks even.
Or sharks. Oh, that's right. Sharks. My apologies. So thank you so much, Shawn, for joining us today and talking to us about the progress of AI in veterinary medicine. We certainly appreciate it. I certainly appreciate it. I also want to take a moment to thank our listeners. We appreciate each and every one of you. We cannot do what we do without you. If you like our podcast, kindly share it with your colleagues and your friends, and certainly use social media as well. Also, please don't forget to leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your reviews will help us find other veterinarians, veterinary students, other veterinary team members, and we certainly want to reach as many as we can. So until next time, keep striving for excellence and making a positive impact in the lives of your patients and pet parents. We certainly wish all of you an amazing week ahead. And Shawn, thank you so much for joining me. I hope you have an amazing week.
It was my pleasure. So good to see you. Bye-bye.
You as well. We'll talk again soon.